Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Di, and today I am bringing you the start of my April wrap-up vlog. So today is April 16th, and I have finally finished one book this month. Things are not looking great for me so far, but I wanted to come on here and talk to you about the one book that I did manage to finish so far this month. So that book was Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. This is a book that follows Claire, who is kind of down on her luck. This is her last chance to find a big find before she pretty much goes unemployed. She has a crew of about 4 other people when they happen to stumble upon a long-lost luxury space-like cruiser. It's kind of like Titanic, but a space shuttle. So it's got like all of the fancy amenities and, rich people were on board, but on its maiden voyage, it disappeared. Nobody was able to get in contact with it, and they just could not find it. So when Claire and her crew stumble upon this, they think they've hit the jackpot. Things obviously, based on what they can see from the windows on the shuttle, are very suspicious. So they decide to go ahead and board the Aurora, which is the name of the luxury shuttle, to see what they can claim as proof that they made the find, because they obviously need to be able to say that they were the first ones to find it, to claim it, and therefore reap the rewards. So they board the ship and definitely start noticing that things have gone wrong on the maiden voyage of this luxury space shuttle. There are dead bodies everywhere, and in a manner of different types of gruesome life-ending situations. Once they've had a chance to look around and have decided that they probably need something a little bit more definitive to prove that they found this ship, they decide that they are going to board the ship and fly it back to Earth as proof of their finding. And during the flight back, they start noticing that there are some other creepy things happening. They find some bloody writing on the wall. They're seeing some movement in the corner of their eye. Hearing some things they probably shouldn't be hearing. And so this book follows the crew in the aftermath of them finding this luxury shuttle and the things that happened to them. I think that the actual summary of this book on Goodreads does a really good job of explaining what this book is about. So there's no fear of going to read the summary and be spoiled for the story, if you know what I mean. I oftentimes do not read summaries of books because I do find that a lot of times I find that there are spoilers. But in this case, I think the summary that's listed there is a really good representation of what this book is about. Some of the things that it doesn't tell you, though, is that this book does tie in some things that had happened to Claire when she was a child. She was in a situation that has left her with some psychological issues, and so that plays in heavily within the story. This book also jumps back in time from when they are on the Aurora and what they do on there, the things that happen to them, as well as a jumping into the present where we kind of don't know what's happened, but for some reason Claire is now on Earth. And so there's a little bit of a mystery as to why she is the only one that's on Earth, what happened to the rest of her crew. And so there's a little bit of a mystery there. There's also a mystery as to what happened to the Aurora, which you're trying to figure out as you go through the book. So yeah, this book does offer a lot more than the summary gives, But unfortunately, this one was just a little bit above okay for me. I would definitely recommend this one, but it wouldn't be one that I'd reread in the future. There were things in what had happened that were definitely like spine chilling for me. But all in all, this book took me almost exactly 2 weeks to finish. And that is a really long time for me. So I was definitely interested in the things that were going on. But once we started jumping back and forth in time, I did not enjoy that. I feel like the first time we jumped into the present, that it gave a lot of stuff away, and I don't understand why we did that. I think it was because they wanted to add an extra layer of mystery as to why Claire was the only one that we were seeing in the present, what happened to her crew. But for me, it just kind of spoiled things because you're getting bits and pieces of what had happened from her recollection, but to me it was just very spoilery. Like, I don't know, I feel a little let down. The suspense lowered for me the minute that we jumped into the present and started figuring out what was going on with Claire and why she was the only one that was back on Earth. I think I would have much preferred having a good portion of, when the crew found the Aurora, being on the ship and things that happened, and then maybe having a little bit of a space in between where Claire leaves and where she is on Earth, instead of having so much of a chunk in between. Like I said, I think they did that so that there'd be a little bit more of a suspenseful feel, but for me, it just didn't work that way. I also really didn't enjoy Claire as a character. I couldn't get behind her. I didn't enjoy her voice, not the voice that I heard for her in my head, nor the voice that was coming across in the narration of the audiobook, because I did try to listen to this on audiobook after I had already started this on ebook. I had borrowed both from my library, and when I started listening to the audiobook, it took me out of the story even more because the voice that was used for Claire just didn't work for me. I guess because I had already had a voice for Claire, and the way that she was being portrayed on the audiobook wasn't how I portrayed her. Just the tone of voice and how she was saying things and her reactions just did not work for me. So I did listen to about an hour of the audiobook and I just stopped. I returned it because it just wasn't working for me. So I did read a majority of this book in ebook copy. And yeah, there were a few moments, like I said, that were very spine chilling. I did read this one before bed, but it wasn't enough to keep me up at night. And yeah, I don't know, like, I fully expected this book to be something that kept me coming back to it and that I'd be finished with in less than a week, but that just was not the case. And I'm just very disappointed in the end. There was a little bit of a romance storyline as well that I was just kind of like, why is this in here? Like, it would have been much better if the romance wasn't there. And a lot of the negativity that Claire receives, it just made me feel uncomfortable. And was that to explain why she acted the way she did? I don't know, but I didn't enjoy that either. So while I did find things that happened in this story interesting, and the fact that it did definitely pick up once our timeline started to meet up, and we stayed in the present until the remainder of the book, that's when things were definitely more cohesive for me. Things definitely amped up in the action portion of it. Maybe even the spook factor, though I would have to say that there were definitely a few encounters that happened before when they were like on the ship with her crew that had happened that probably affected me a little bit more than some of the things that had happened towards the end. I did find that once we were at a certain point of the story, things definitely picked up and moved for me a lot quicker, and I was able to read and stay with the book, be in the story a lot better. So, yeah, I am a bit disappointed. I had heard so many great things about this one. I was definitely in the mood for a kind of horror, sci-fi adventure. When I heard that this was like Titanic, and I could see the correlation to Titanic with the luxury space shuttle, it definitely grabbed my attention, but yeah, this one just didn't hit the mark for me. I'd be interested to read another book by this author, though, because I did really appreciate the concept. To me, it just wasn't a story that I was grasped by, I guess. I definitely, like I said, enjoyed some of the parts. There were some spine-chilling moments, but I just couldn't get behind our main character. And so I think that, for me, is a large portion of why I didn't enjoy this one as much, especially because of the negativity that's thrown towards her, as well as just some of the things she does and how she reacts, as well as the romance storyline that I didn't really think should have been there in the first place. But that is the only book that I have finished so far this month. So it's a book that's not on my TBR. It wasn't on my TBR, but it came back through to me. And so I didn't want to pass up the opportunity to read it again. And so I decided to go ahead and start my month off with that one. But unfortunately, it's taken me quite a bit of time to finish. And so I've got my work cut out for me for the rest of the month. So hopefully things will turn around for me in the next couple weeks. But that's all I've got for this portion of the wrap-up. I will be back in a bit to let you know what else I have read during April. Hi everyone, it is Saturday, April 23rd, and I am here to tell you about all the things that I have read since I talked to you last. So I finished Allegiant, which is the third book in the Divergent series by Veronica Roth. So this was a book that I was supposed to read because my TBR game gave me a punishment deck pull, and this is the book that came out of the punishment deck. So I reluctantly read it. I had avoided this book for 7 years because I had always thought a specific thing was going to happen at the end of this series, and I just didn't want to read it. I was never really connected enough to the series where I thought, oh my gosh, I need to find out what happens, hence the 7-year delay in reading it. But yeah, I've always had this really strong feeling that something specific was going to happen at the end of this book. And now that I have read the book, I can tell you I was right. I was completely right in what I thought was going to happen at the end of this book. So that's not good. But other than that, because I didn't really feel a strong pull to this series to begin with, like, I really enjoyed the first book. But the second book, in recollection for me, was just okay. When looking back at my Goodreads rating, it says I gave this 4 stars, and I don't remember it being 4 stars for me. But sometimes time can change your feeling on a book, and I think that's definitely what happened with this one. And so going into this third book, I was afraid that I was going to have to reread the first 2 to finish the series because it had been so long. But thankfully, jumping into this book, I really didn't feel lost at all. And so that was nice. That was probably the only nice thing that I can say about this book, because truthfully, I really didn't enjoy this one. I really feel like this book needs you to be connected to the couple that's portrayed in this story. And for me, I wasn't. I don't recall ever being connected to this couple. And so when you have a story that has a lot of romantic scenes between the two characters in the couple and you're not connected to that couple, it doesn't make the reading experience very enjoyable. And I feel like for me, if I'm going to be reading romantic scenes between characters, whether it's just them thinking about how much they love this person, or how elated they are to be just near the person that they love, I need to be behind that couple. I have to have some kind of connection. I need to feel something, and I didn't. And so jumping into this story where I feel like it really depends on your connection to this couple and your emotional connection to this couple and the fact that you believe in their love. You really need that for this last book, and I just wasn't there. And so, yeah, this book was just okay for me. Am I glad I finished the series? Sure. Could I have gone forever without knowing exactly how the story ended? Absolutely. So, it took me a really long time to finish this book because I wasn't invested in it. And I just, like I said, I had a feeling that this was going to end a certain way, and it did. And unfortunately, I just didn't enjoy it. So, yeah. I am glad I finished another series, though. So that's a good thing that came out of this. And I'm glad to have gotten that card out of my punishment deck for my TBR game. But it did take me a really long time. And so it's kind of been where I'm at as far as my reading. It really has brought me down. That coupled with the fact that Dead Silence took me a long time to finish this month as well. My reading is just, I feel like I'm in a slump. But yeah, so I finished Allegiant, and I'm glad that I did finally finish it this month, because that opened up my schedules for me to be able to read other things that I have on my plate for this month. As of today, we have 1 week left in the month, and I've got a lot of other things that I need to read for the Orilium Academy, and so I really need to get that done. But as far as other things I've read, we did have our Monochrome Manga Club meeting on Thursday, and so I did read those selections, but I won't be talking about my thoughts on the selections here, other than one. So let me tell you what I've read. I read the first volume of Cat Massage Therapy by Haruhi Sakawa, published by 7 Seas, rated all ages. This one is about some weary office workers getting massages from these adorable cats. Absolutely no plot, but I love that one. Definitely go and check out my Monochrome Manga Club series first impressions videos for this month's selections to hear me talk about more on that volume, as well as the next volumes that I will mention here. We also read volume 1 of Happy Kaneko's Killer Life by Toshiya Wakabayashi, published by 7 Seas, rated teen. This one follows a woman who gets fired from her job, and in interviewing for other jobs, she accidentally interviews at an assassin agency and becomes an assassin for hire. So that's that one. And then we also started a new series. We read volume 1 of Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon by Naoko Takeuchi. This is the Eternal Edition. This is published by Kodansha, rated teen, and this is a magical girl series that I'm sure you know what it's about. So I talk about all 3 of those volumes in my Monochrome Manga Club series first impressions video that is already out on my channel, so I'll link it down in the description box below. So if you'd like to hear my thoughts on any of those volumes, definitely check out that video. But there is one thing that we did read for the Monochrome Manga Club that I will talk about here, and that is volume 4 of the Black Edition of Death Note by Tsugumi Oba and Takeshi Obata. This one is published by Viz, and I'm not even sure what it is rated because I don't have it with me here. We only have the all-in-one edition, and so that's what we've been reading from, as well as the Shonen Jump app. So, yeah, we do have a subscription to the Shonen Jump app, and it's a great deal. $2 a month, and we can read as much as we want from their archives, and so I've been really enjoying that. But anyway, this one follows Light, who stumbles across a notebook that happens to have the ability to, or happens to give him the ability to kill people by writing down their names in the notebook. Words today. So, yeah, where we are with this, lots of things have changed in the series. I don't want to give any spoilers. I do remember a lot of what's happened where we are in the series because, like I've said before, I have watched both seasons of the anime, so I do know where this is going. I was informed by one of the Monochrome Manga Club members at our meeting that the end of the manga is different from the end of the anime, so I'm really interested in that because I do remember being confused a little bit with things that had happened, the way the anime ended, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how the series ends, but we are not there yet. Something big happened in this volume, though, something that I was expecting because I have seen the anime, like I said, but it was very sad for me. And that's pretty much all I can say without spoiling things. We were introduced to a couple new characters in this volume, one which I didn't remember from the anime. So that's interesting for me. But yeah, still enjoying revisiting this series. I'm still not liking the fact that we get an omniscient point of view because I do feel like it takes away from the suspensefulness this story could have if we didn't have that point of view. We didn't know everything that was going on from everybody in the series. But yeah, I am still really enjoying this journey and I'm having a great time discussing that along with the rest of the volumes that we read with our members. So that is everything that I have read up until this point of the month. There is one more week left at the end of the month, so hopefully I'll get a bunch of other reads in because, like I said, I do still have a list of things I need to read for the Orilium Spring Equinox Readathon. And yes, so I will check in with you one more time before the end of the month to let you know where I am at. Or at least one more time before the end of the month to wrap up this month's read. So I'll talk to you in a bit.
Hi everyone, it is Tuesday, April 26th. I did finish 2 things since I talked to you last week. I finished volumes 15 and 16 of What Did You Eat Yesterday by Fumi Yoshinaga. This is a series that follows a gay couple as they go through life, cooking and eating delicious meals, basically. This is a series that I really, really enjoy. It is one that I am pleasantly surprised with because it's not my typical type of thing to read. But I really enjoy checking in with these guys when a new volume is out. I've had these 2 volumes sitting on my Comixology account for a while. And so I actually have volume 17 as well. But I don't think I'm going to be able to get to it before the month is over. And so, yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. Definitely 5 stars for both. I am using volume 15 for my animal studies class for the Orilium Spring Equinox. So that's great. And then both volumes are for the Rotating Decks TBR game TBR for April. So got that one checked off as well. And I hope you're all having a good one. And I will talk to you later.
Hi everyone, it is Saturday, April 30th, and I am here to wrap up this wrap-up vlog. So I have read a few things since I talked to you last. So let me get to that, and then we'll talk about how I did for the Orilium Spring Equinox semester. So the first thing that I finished this week was Crow Bones. This is the 3rd book in the World of the Others series by Anne Bishop. This is actually a direct sequel to Lake Silence, which is book 2 in the World of the Others. And this one follows our characters from Lake Silence. Around Halloween time is where this book opens up, and it kind of brings into the mix one of the elders in this world, which is like a really ancient entity, if you will, named Crowbones. And obviously the crows are afraid of her, but Crowbones only comes out when something really terrible happens to like exact revenge and stuff like that. At least that's my understanding of it, and so this one follows the investigation into why Crowbones was prompted to come out and exact revenge. And we also get to spend time with characters that we had met in the previous installment and see what their lives are like in the aftermath of that book. In this book, we also get a few cameos from characters in other books from the Others series. So I really, really enjoyed this book. This was my most anticipated book of 2022. This was my only anticipated book for 2022, to be honest. Because if you know me, you know I am a backlist reader and I very rarely read new release books. But this is a series that I have just absolutely loved from the very first book in the Others series. I have to say, I don't enjoy the books in the World of the Others as much as the books in the Others series, just because with the Others, we do follow the same group of characters from book 1 through book 5. In the World of the Others series, the first book in the World of the Others series is a completely different set of characters. We see a couple that we've heard of before, but we're in a different part of this world, so it's a bit different. And then in the second book, we meet more characters, and we follow those characters in that book. So I kind of feel like the World of the Others books are kind of disconnecting to me. I had no idea that this particular installment was a direct sequel to Lake Silence. If I had known that, I probably would have reread Lake Silence before I read this one, because I do think that part of the reason why I didn't enjoy this one as much as I thought I was going to was because of the length of time it has been since Lake Silence to the time this book was published. I am up to date with this series, so that means whenever a new book comes out, that's when I read it, or at least I strive to read it. So it's been a while since I've read Lake Silence, and I don't quite remember a lot. I didn't really enjoy that one just because we do find our main character dealing with some verbal abuse from an ex-husband, and that's the whole reason why she is now in Lake Silence. And her husband is just so anyway, there was that, the whole content of the husband and how he acted. But I don't know, I just felt like all of the books in this sequel series was going to be disconnected, and so I wasn't expecting it to be connected. It was a nice surprise that it was connected, but I feel like I missed out because I didn't do a reread before reading this. So there was that. I also think that this would have hit differently if I read it closer to October, maybe, because this book does open at Halloween time, and it's got that like feel. We are at a Halloween party at the very beginning of this book, and I kind of felt a little weird reading about a Halloween party when it's the end of April. So I think having that ambiance, or that, that feeling that you get when you're reading books in October or around spooky season, that would have helped the feeling of this book. The other thing is that the crows play a big part in this story because Crow Bones is heavily in their background, their history, and the crows were never my favorite characters in like the whole world of the others. So yeah, I did enjoy this though. I do believe that once I get to reread Lake Silence and then immediately read this one after, that I will have a better experience. I'm not sure that I will want to do that this year though. We'll see how I feel. I've been having a rough time with reading, so I might be looking for comfort reads still towards that time of the year. We shall see. But yeah, I still really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed being back in the world. I listened to the audiobook for a majority of this one, and I enjoy the narration of this series as a whole. And I really enjoyed the cameos of previous characters that we had seen that we haven't heard from in a while, and just getting a glimpse of them. Like, it's like seeing an old friend after a long time, you know what I mean? So I will definitely be rereading this one sometime. We'll see if it happens this year. I may not be up to it, but we'll just have to see how my reading goes. But I still really enjoyed this one, and I'm definitely hoping that the time between the publication of this one and the publication of the next book in this series is not as long as it was between the last two books. So that was that one. And then I read my omnibus of Bleach. This is the 3-in-1 edition, volume 8 by Tite Kubo. You know, my daughter and I have been doing a read and watch along on this, and we got a little bit stalled because we were watching, and then there was an arc that wasn't in the manga, and so we had to make sure we watched all of that before we got to the story in here. And so we have now caught up with the watching, so we were able to go ahead and get started with this. We obviously are 24 volumes in now, so that's 22, 23, and 24 in this omnibus, and there are a lot of things that have happened. We're basically still following Ichigo Kurosaki, who is now a substitute Soul Reaper. He got his powers from Rukia, who was supposed to be protecting his area of Japan. And when Hollow, which is a kind of like an evil spirit, comes to attack his family, Rukia tries to intervene but gets injured in the fight and tells Ichigo, hey, there's a way that you can still help to save your family. If I infuse you with some of my powers, you'll be able to fight the Hollow in my stead. He obviously accepts, but little snafu happens in that transfer of power. He ends up zapping all of Rukia's power, and so Rukia is left powerless, but Ichigo becomes this really strong Soul Reaper in her stead. And so we've kind of followed him through all of that in the aftermath of Rukia doing that transfer power, which is not looked upon nicely by the Soul Society where she's from. So we're now past that, and now we're finding some new baddies. There's still a connection here because these new baddies are being trained by someone we've met earlier. I'm trying to be as general as I can be, but this is one of those arcs that I found very interesting. We're dealing with the Arankars and the Vizards. If you've watched the anime, you know what I'm talking about. And it's just really interesting. And a lot of the members of the Soul Society have now come to Karakura Town, which is where Ichigo lives, to protect the area and fight these Arankars. And I just really, really enjoyed this. I flew through this volume. It was such a breath of fresh air to get back to these characters. It's story that I already know for the most part, but you get these little tidbits in between, like this, where there's a little note from the mangaka. At the beginning of every volume, there's a little note from the mangaka about something that's going on in his life, or something that happened to him, or just him reflecting on something. And so those are all really nice. And then in between, we get these little cartoon strips that have nothing to do with the story that is in here. But it's just like a separate little mini story that's like cut up because you only get one strip per like few pages. I don't know how many pages there are in between. But it's content that I'm not familiar with, and so it keeps this read fresh for me. Because even though it's stuff that I've already experienced, one, it's been a while since I've watched the anime. We have watched the entire thing, but it's been several years. Two, I get a little bit of things that I don't quite remember here and there. Some things that may not have interested me enough when I was watching to keep my interest that maybe I just glanced over. Plus, we get the little strips of extra content, extra story that were never in the anime. So I just really enjoyed this. My daughter also flew through this one. So I think we're going to be ready to watch this section of the anime soon. And we've just really been enjoying our journey with that one. So absolutely had an awesome time with that. I also read volume 5 of My Pink is Overflowing by Yuki Mino. This is a digital first, so it's only available digitally. I have the other 4 volumes as well, but I've read them quite a while ago. There's been a publication gap in between volumes 4 and 5, and so I had picked up volume 5 early in January, and because one of my prompts for my TBR game was Comixology, I've just been picking up things in my Comixology library and looking to see what I have there, because, you know, a lot of times you forget what you've got digitally, and I saw that I had this one, and so I was like, oh, let me read that. So I just picked it up, and this one basically is just a contemporary romance story that follows a woman who had a bad situation with an ex who kept comparing her to other women, and then everybody she seemed to date after that compared her to other women they've dated, and she just had enough. And so she decides that she is not going to date anyone who has had any experience, let's just say. Just so that she doesn't constantly get compared to other women. And she ends up going to a club. She meets a guy. The guy only wants one thing. She tries to ditch him, but as she's doing that, she runs into her boss. And her boss is pretty young. You can see on the cover here, they're pretty close in age. I can't remember exactly how old they are, but they look pretty close in age. And our main character has a little bit of a thing for men in crisp white dress shirts. And he happens to be wearing one when they meet. And so while he's trying to help calm her down, she's getting to know him a little bit better and finds out that he is inexperienced. And he hasn't really had a girlfriend either, and so she's like, oh, he's perfect. And so they kind of talk and decide to embark on a romantic relationship with each other. And that's pretty much how the story starts, and now we're following them throughout their relationship, getting to know each other, and things like that. This is a mature title, so there are mature scenes in here, not for below adults, younger than adults. There is sexual content in this one. So, yeah. I enjoyed this one. This one follows them meeting his parents. His parents come into town, and so it's kind of a big step for them in their relationship, and I'm just really enjoying it. There is something that's coming up that's doesn't look like it's going to be so enjoyable for me, though. There is a particular trope that I just don't care for in reading, and it looks like that's going to come into play in the next volume. I don't know how long it's going to be till we see another volume of this series, but I enjoy reading this one. I enjoy following these two characters, and yeah. So I'm glad that that one finally came in and I was able to read that one and that I remembered that I had it. So thanks TBR Game for giving me Comixology for my prompt. I do need to read more of that later. But other than that, I have also read Momotaro, Peach Boy. This one is illustrated by George Suyaoka. You can see it's got an awesome illustration. This is based on an old Japanese folktale. It says, illustrations by George Suyaoka, edited by Ruth Tabraw, adapted from the original folktale by Island Heritage. So Island Heritage is a publishing company. And here's a little peek of the inside of the book. It is just absolutely gorgeous. I had read this one when I was a kid. And so I remembered a little bit of it. Basically, we're following a couple, an elderly couple, who have enjoyed their life. They enjoy their life. They enjoy each other. But there's always been a little bit of sadness in the fact that they were never able to have children of their own. And one day when the wife is down by the stream washing their clothes, a very large peach flows down the stream, and she thinks this is such good fortune because it's such a treat. Things like this are very expensive, and they don't live the kind of life to be able to afford things like this all the time. And so she picks up the peach, and it's like huge. It's like this big. And she brings it home, and her husband comes home from working his fields, and she's like, look what I found. And just as they were about to cut into it, a baby boy emerges from the peach. And this like completely changes their lives. And so it follows the story of this boy being born from this peach and him growing into a teen and finding out that there's like this force that is wreaking havoc on their town, and him going out and vanquishing that evil force. And so I really, really enjoyed it. The only thing that I didn't enjoy about this book was the fact that we are told at the very beginning of this book that the man, the husband, looked very good for his age of 40. Now, I had always thought that this story was about an old elderly couple, right? So I'm like, oh, maybe they made a twist on this story, you know? So then I'm, reading through the story, and I see the illustration of the family, and, well, I first get the illustration of the wife. And I'm thinking, okay, the wife is going to be about the same age as the husband, right? In their 40s. Does she look like she's in her 40s to you? I was like, what? I mean, that illustration is appropriate for the story that I'm familiar with. But when you have it listed in the text of the story that the character is 40, and then you draw grandma, yeah, I was a little bit like, what? See, and that's her husband right there. So he is drawn about the same age, but he's supposed to be 40 in this adaptation. Not, I don't know, what would you say, 60, 70? As depicted by the illustration. So I think there was a miscommunication in what was relayed to the person who wrote down this story, because to me it looks like George Suyoka illustrated it based on what we know as a story with an elderly couple, and then whoever wrote the story that is in this adaptation didn't have a good gauge on the age of the characters. So that was a little bit strange for me. Nonetheless, the story was really, really interesting. I really love the illustrations. As you saw, it's gorgeous, gorgeous illustrations. I don't think you can get this book very readily anymore. Island Heritage is a local publishing company in Hawaii, and I'm not even sure if they're around anymore. But we used to get books like this all the time when I was a kid. And this book was published before I was born. But, yeah, I enjoyed it. It's a nice short book, and I really enjoyed it. I should revisit more of my childhood books, because I've got a lot of these like Japanese or Chinese inspired by folktale stories that were created for little kids that I have been kind of wanting to reread. And so, yeah, that is everything that I have read lately. Let me let you know how I've done on my spring equinox semester at the Orilium Academy. I do have my trusty notes here. So I was supposed to read for 6 classes. So the first class is Elemental Studies, read a book under 100 pages. So that was Momotaro. Shape-shifting, read a book with a character that has claws on the cover. And for that one, I decided to go with Cat Massage Therapy. Animal Studies is read a quick read, so I read What Did You Eat Yesterday, Volume 15. Astronomy was read a book that was on the top of your TBR, and for me, that was Crow Bones by Anne Bishop. For Conjuration, I was supposed to read a book with a source of light on the cover, and for this one, I read Sailor Moon, that's upside down. Sailor Moon, the Eternal Edition, Volume 1, so you can see there are moons there on the cover. And then for Restoration, I needed to read something that featured healers, and for that I read Bleach, the 3-in-1 Edition, Volume 8. This has a variety of healers, from doctors to actual people that have healing abilities in this storyline, so that's what I read. So I have passed all of my classes for the spring semester, so I did a good job. I am very happy that I was able to get through all of those. There was a point in time this month where I did not think that I was going to pass all of my classes. That's just how my reading mojo has been over the last couple weeks, and so I'm hoping for a better May. As you know, I am participating in 3 different readathons, so I'm hoping those readathons will keep me motivated, and that the reads that I've picked for those readathons will help get me out of this slump I feel like I'm in. But let me know down in the comments below if you participated in the Orilium Spring Equinox Readathon. Did you pass all of your classes? What house are you in? What profession are you going for? And if you've read any of these books, what did you think of them? But please, no spoilers. If nothing else, you would just like to let me know that you were here. If you could leave me a peach emoji down in the comments below, that would be greatly appreciated and would really help me out, and that will do it for me today. So I hope you're all doing great. I hope you're all safe and healthy. And until next time, take care and smile always. Bye.